Prendergast is a Sister of Mercy who lives in Providence, Rhode Island. She is also an activist and an advocate for the health of the earth. She has been arrested while peacefully protesting the construction of a fracking facility, a gas plant in Providence, Rhode Island. And she's been detained many times while participating in marches for Earth and Earth's diverse communities. Mary has participated in countless nonviolent protests through which she stands with people in their suffering. In this interview, Mary will share her experiences of following the Athabasca River from its headwaters down to the tar sands in Alberta, Canada, where she encountered the devastating effects of extractivism on Indigenous communities, cultures, and the wildlife. Mary, thank you for sharing with us your personal experiences and knowledge of extractivism and its impacts. Please share with us your personal experiences, your personal witness of the destruction that has been caused by extraction industries.
Well, thank you, Terry. Thanks for having me. Actually, one of the most important experiences I've had in my life as a Sister of Mercy was to get entirely out of my comfort zone and pilgrimage to the tar sands in Alberta, Canada. And it's an experience that just has colored everything in my life. What happened was I began with a personal retreat with Sister Maureen Wild, who's a Sister of Charity. She lives in British Columbia. And so we spent several days in Jasper National Park, where we were like just soaked in the beauty of nature and the natural world, and the creatures, the moose, the caribou, everybody was walking around wild. And it really was a fantastic experience. And then she took me to the Columbian ice field. And that's a glacier. And it's the beginning point of 3 rivers. The Columbian River, the Saskatchewan River, and the Athabasca River. Now, I was going to be following the Athabasca River, which began as this pure glacial water, and I followed it into the Athabasca Falls, which were just breathtaking, and I followed it for hundreds of miles until it went into Fort McMurray in Alberta, Canada, which is the site of the tar sands industry. Now, at that time, Laudato Si had just come out. And there's a line in there that asks us to feel the destruction of Earth in our own bodies. And so as I was in this tiny plane flying over the gaping holes and the sulfur pits and the polluted waters and the scarecrows and little booming cannons to try to keep the waterfowl off of the polluted waterways, I felt this sense of dread in my body of what we were doing to Earth.
It must have been just an incredible experience of just devastation, to go from the green and the beauty and the purity of the water and the forest to this brown, what has been made into a wasteland.
Exactly. You know, the boreal forest is like, it's one of the wonders, ecological wonders of the world, really. It's like 1.25 billion acres of forest and bog and peatland and mountain and millions of waterways, which, as you can imagine, is the source of life. It's the place of life, the locus, for hundreds of millions of animals. And it's also the place for hundreds of First Nations people. Mm. And so it was really, as you said, it was breathtaking to be in the greenery and the diversity, the biodiversity and the wonder, and then go immediately into this devastation.
Mary, it's so true, isn't it, that once we see the damage caused by extractive industries, it unsettles us. And so much of the damage is hidden. It's off the main path where most of us can't see it firsthand. So I'd like to ask you the second question. In what ways have you seen the extraction of fossil fuels affect the people, the communities, and Earth?
Okay, well, first of all, let's be very clear what extractivism is. And that is a model of development that exploits the natural world, usually in gas and oil or minerals, could be gold or diamonds or rare earths, could be water, could be trees, but it exploits those natural resources for the financial benefit of a few, while the people who actually live in the communities where the natural resources are receive little to no benefit, or usually they receive great harm. And I also want us to be clear that the root of this model is capitalism. And capitalism is based on the assumption that there is unlimited growth. So to continue, I followed that river, right? And I followed it right through the tar sands extraction. Now, I just want to explain a little bit about what tar sands extraction is, because it's so unsustainable. To get 1 barrel of tar sands bitumen, it takes 2 tons of earth and 3 barrels of water from the Athabasca River. Now, sometimes the excavation of the tar sands, sometimes the tar sands are too deep. And so they go to another method, which is called in situ. And for that, they actually steam out the bitumen. And in order to steam out the bitumen, you have to boil water. And they boil the water with natural gas. And that natural gas is estimated to be able to heat 6 million North American homes. So I just want to give that little background that if this is sounding like a completely unsustainable way to obtain bitumen, which, by the way, the largest market for bitumen is the United States, but if it's sounding like it's just way out of whack, it really is. But I was introduced to the elders in Fort McKay, which is it's the next town after the industry. And they invited me to a dinner of moose meat and new potatoes. And they began to tell me about their childhood, really, their way of life when they were children. They would run down the hill with pails and get buckets right from the Athabasca, and that was their water. And they would fish and hunt and swim. And what they told me now, that they no longer swim in the water of the Athabasca. They no longer eat the fish because the fish are known to have cancers and lesions and tumors, and I've seen pictures of those. They no longer eat the wild berries or the herbs that grow on the side of the river. And they said that the wildlife has basically disappeared. So it's like, I secretly wondered where they went and what were they drinking wherever they were. But I met a woman named Celia Hart. And Celia is an older woman, an outspoken critic of the tar sands industry. She told me that there haven't been frogs on the river for 40 years. They're like the proverbial canaries in the coal mine. You know, they just can't live in a toxic environment. But Celia was telling me about the toxic emissions that people breathe and how the people now no longer drink the water. And they've come down with all sorts of sicknesses, the people, skin lesions, asthmas, lupus, and cancers that I couldn't even pronounce. It's like, she was telling me that every family has someone who's sick. Her husband actually had lung cancer. Her sister died of lupus. And when I was there, her grandson had recently been killed in an industry accident. And so I happened to be there for the memorial service. But most of the young people now are working in the industry. So it was clear to me that a way of life, a culture had been supplanted by the industry.